Well, I have to be finishing by 11:45, therefore I'll be quick in my presentation. And I will avoid to repeat what's been already said. Now, you see the general economic indicators on the slide. For the last 2 years, Turkish steel industry, different from the previous years, is passing through a narrowing period. Cumulative 12%. Therefore, the economic growth is in fact is like 10.5%. And we sum it up, it's like 27% of a difference. This is the general performance. This shows us that the steel industry is in the opposite direction of the general performance of Turkey. This was quite the opposite in the previous years. The economic growth was like 3%, and we had a higher level of growth in steel industry. In 2016, 17, or even 21, GDP was like 1.18% growth. So during the last 2 years, there has been a negative differentiation. Now, uh, as it's been already been mentioned by the speakers, the reason of this situation is the extraordinary increase in the imports has been a very important effect. And you're going to see SteelOrbis in every desk. When you have a look at it, you're going to see the reason of the performance there and how it has impacted the global steel industry on the cover. Now, this China, Ayhan Bey has mentioned about it in detail. China has developed 8 times faster than the rest of the world during the last decade and grown by 20%, and then started to go into the recession, and there is a negative or 1% growth. It was like this year. Now, China, even if they don't increase their manufacturing level there, their presence of it being a threat to us will continue. As you will know, China in 2014 and 15 was exporting to the manufacturers globally and came across with serious reactions. And in order to limit this commerce, there was a pressure. And as a result, until 2020, they had to narrow down their capacity. However, they created new capacities. And these new capacities are with induction furnaces, and new capacities have been launched, more competitive capacities. And at the moment, with respect to the green transformation, even though there are lots of things going on, more than 40 million tons of an integrated facility investment is to take place. On one side, we see that China is making things in alignment, however, is not stopping the projects as well. Keep on making investments for integrated facilities. In the manufacturing, we're on the 8th rank. However, since December, we started to take the 7th rank with the increase in our production. According to the numbers of January, we are well ahead of Germany, and this is, in fact, of course, is based on the recession of Germany. Now, looking at the steel manufacturing capacity, the production capacities globally, 25% office abandoned and And this is in fact a very high use of capacity for us, which was 75%. Last year it was 56%. So here we see that China uh, has a higher level compared to us. And again, we have something like 70 to 75% of a capacity which we reached in 2021, the capacity utility rate. So you can see the decrease of the last 2 years in this table. Well, we were upwards for 2 years and downwards for another 2 years. This may take longer time. At the moment, we're passing through a similar process. We see the fluctuations in every 3 years. This year, we hope that we're going to be going upwards. This is also in our culture as well. We usually see these kinds of developments in our general life as well. We go 2 steps ahead and then 1 step back. So this can be the case. So this is uh, in the first month of 2024, we have had a 25% of a growth. And in the second year, by the effect of the earthquake, this will probably go up to 50%. This 3.4 million tons of production level to go higher than that level is necessary. And as the new capacities will be launched, those trial levels are behind now. Therefore, we are going to be able to reach these levels. And when we have a look at rate of use of capacity in 2023, 53.3 million tons, the capacity use was like 56.3%. Million tons. In 2021, this has reached up to 70%. In 2017 has reached to 75%. Now, if we think that we were somewhere like 80% in the past, this is in fact a very low capacity use rate. But we believe that this is going to change in the coming period. Turkey, the dynamism in our economy is ongoing. And contradicted to the negative indications, there has been an increase, which is 38.1 million tons. And on top of this, if we can add some export performance, then easily we can reach to 40 million tons. However, this 38.1 million, a large part of it is imported, and a small portion of it comes from the national manufacturing. Therefore, the capacity used is not that high. Now, in terms of the flat steel, I'd like to talk about it a little bit. Well, as you can imagine, the first level was like 3 million tons at the beginning of 2000s. And the long steel was like 5.5%. And then in 2015, there was 8 million tons of long production. And now when we have a look at this, there is a 1.8 folds of difference. But in this regard, the consumption of the flat steel is higher than the other. And if you're able to balance the imports at a certain level, meaning if you just supply, if you just create a mechanism to supply a part of this amount from the domestically produced, then this may give an increase in the use of capacity rate as well. We know that to have such a mechanism and to be able to supply it at an easier level is going to give a rise in terms of the production amount as well. Well, as I said, the flat steel consumption is much better. It's 19.5 million tons compared to 13 million. When we have a look at the share of import and import in terms of steel consumption, flat steel consumption, this even has risen up to 4% in 2021. However, uh, with the extreme prices here, the Far Eastern countries entering into Turkish market in an uncontrolled manner had an impact on it. This was an extraordinary situation. This has reached up to 49%, 50%, 54%. For a very long time, this has been perceived as something reasonable. However, it was never reasonable. The prices of China at the moment are never acceptable. When you have a look at the scrap cost, the Turkey has the power to compete with the European market or the United States. It's like $200 is higher than the United States prices, or 50 euros higher than the European markets. And there are certain incentives given to the American steel sector, millions of dollars, and very rigid purchasing policies help them to support the steel industry. Well, this of course is going to help them to allocate resources for uh, accelerating the transformation. And in the European Union, we see grants. For instance, I work with the European Union delegations from the European Commission. A legal person mentioned about $10,000 of an incentive. And I said, let's not talk about 10 or 20,000. We're just wasting time. He said, yeah, we have to. One penny of a state support or subsidy has to be discussed, he said. And I said, there is no reason behind it. So this is ethically not acceptable. Uh, and the European Union is now making is providing support in order to come up with new capacities. And they set the rules themselves, and they think it's good at the moment. And as we're not able to align with it at the moment because of the economic conditions in our country, there is a kind of a mismatch, and there will be some challenges in that regard, of course. And the European Union, the decarbonization regulation, and we consider it as a tax to be paid on the customs. This protection measure had to come to an end 3 years ago because of the pressure of the United States. It didn't come to an end. We have reached to the 6th year, and the UK made an announcement saying that we're going to maintain it till the first half of the 2026. And Mr. Alexander, said that Turkey is in the second rank, and Turkey is on the seventh rank in the last quarter. China, Taiwan, Vietnam, South Korea, India, followed by Indonesia, and then Turkey comes. And this transformation, if we're able to realize that transformation and then reach to the second rank, that would be great. But I'm not so sure we can do that because we're closer to the Europe and they can send whatever they have surplus in their stocks, they can send it to us. And we can work with them as the stakeholder. We can have a liberal or a free trade. But in the protectionist measure understanding, we're at the same level with the third countries in terms of dumping and in terms of decarbonization mechanism as well. And how we're going to put this into life. And by the end of the 2 year period, what are we going to face is going to be something that we're going to see. But I have to say that we're trying to compete, we're trying to complete the green transformation under unfair conditions. And one more thing to say, our imports from the European Union is also going down. The imports from the European Union is decreasing by 30%, but the imports from the Far Eastern countries is increasing by 40%, more than 40%, as you can see on the slide. China, 77%, South Korea, 68%, Japan, 67%, Taiwan, 522%, and Egypt. Therefore, our developing trade is going down, and from a win-win situation, we're going to a lose-lose situation at the moment. So, so the energy prices in Turkey were very high, and when the energy prices are very high, we are not able to cope with the cost. Then the state in Germany made a great support, and our exports has gone down strongly in 2023. And the European Union went for the investigations and closed down the investigations immediately. So we can continue to make business in a very civilized manner, but I believe they need some time to perceive that this can be done. Now, the exports of Turkey is going down and imports is increasing, as you can see on the slide. In the steel industry in 2024, we believe that this is going to change. Imports will go down and exports will go upwards. Again, import and export coverage from 75% has gone down to 34%. This is also a matter of concern to us. However, we are hopeful about 2024. For instance, in terms of our crude steel, there's a 24% increase. In terms of the capacity utilization rate, there's an increase of 8%. And for flat steel production, there's an increase of 61%, which is extraordinarily great. And for the consumption, it's 33%. And this increase shows us that even if it is even it is limited, there is a limitation on imports, and export has increased by 89%, and import has increased by 8.8%. Therefore, the January indicators look good. We expect the February numbers to be much better if nothing comes up extraordinary. And we believe that 2024, for the new capacities and in terms of keeping the energy prices at a certain level, and if no unreasonable policies are put up front, And well, in fact, the state is not supporting us here in Turkey, but imposing tax. Therefore, they're making it very challenging. And we talk about this in every meeting. Therefore, if they stop such actions, then if we're going to go for the same transformation process with the European Union, then we definitely have to be under the same financial conditions. This also has to be very well perceived and understood by the decision makers. This is the most important prerequisite. We would like to be a part of the European trade. However, if we're not able to cope with it financially, then we have lots of concerns. We believe that for 25, we're going to have the necessary steps in place, and hopefully, the European Union uh, provided free carbon allocation is going to be enabled and provided to us as well. $1.5 billion of income generated by Arctic metal, for instance, and we haven't launched this yet because we don't have the climate change law put into effect yet, and we don't have the emission trade system yet. This may require a very long time. Therefore, I fully believe in green transformation, however, with the necessary steps being taken. But we would like to come up with the flexible situation, and we have to be seen as a partner to the European Union. And with no doubt that a large part of our organizations, as Ayhan Bey mentioned, their biggest problem comes from energy, and they're making their renewable energy investments for this. Some steps will be taken. And there we have another challenge. The European Union is accepting the renewable energy on the roofs of other organizations, but they don't accept the investment done in Erzincan or Erzurum. So this isn't acceptable again. The steel manufacturer, why wouldn't be able to make an investment in another city? They do it only for their purpose, of course. This isn't fair. So we see this attitude posing challenges. So this isn't about the protection of the climate, but it is perceived as we perceive them as protecting the interests of commercial interests. If we would like to go for the best interest for the planet, we have to be on the fair basis. And I hope that the European Commission's approach will be developed this way. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much, Veysel. Are there any questions from the audience then? I would like to ask you a question then. This about this green transformation. You said there is a delay. You talked about the problems about the support. If I'm not mistaken, this was last week. I was at an online meeting organized by the Ministry of Commerce, and the Ministry of Energy had some presentation there. They talked about some incentives there, but nothing very serious in terms of the amount. Now, would you please evaluate that? First of all, we would never underestimate any effort, first of all, but the World Bank, the credit is $560 billion covering all the sectors. And let's say that 20% of that goes to the steel industry. It's going to be like $100 million. And Erdemir has said that $2.3 million in investment is done. So what would be the contribution of $100 million to the steel industry? Because this is going to be like $2 or $3 billion for each organization. So 10 million liras is the project financing support. This is good, but the cost is like $300 million, then we have to know that it's humble. Very clearly, we have to say that some uh, environment taxes are taken from us, and they're used for buying procurement of certain vehicles to the municipalities. So it's the resource allocation. So when we have such a desperate need for making investments, taking money from us and giving them to the local administrations is never reasonable. So if I was the authority to make that decision, I would be embarrassed with that decision. And of course, we have to talk about them. But first of all, we have to let them breathe. They have to use their own money for their own investment in a project of IBIS. This isn't about the steel, but the iron. The label price is always 52 folds. We thought it would be 38, but there is added value added tax as well. So 80 penny is going to be like 55 lira. So these are not acceptable. In order to solve a problem, fund is organized from a sector. For instance, for the earthquake, something comes up, and with no expenditure, they just take it from the organizations. This should never be the case. So the steel industry is in trouble in that respect. So a similar system in Europe has to be applied in Turkey as well. Okay, let me ask you a question about this. We've been talking about this for a while. So what is your expectation that this is going to take place 2025? So the decisions that have to be taken are suspended because of the elections. And we've realized that there's going to be the local election. So it's going to be again after the elections. Hopefully, there's not going to be any new elections in the coming months. So we shouldn't be irrational. So we are not in the position to be able to tolerate irrationality. We don't have any margin of tolerance at the moment. We shouldn't be going out of the scientific data to manage the economy. I have to say this on a very sincere level, without any political background. So hopefully after the elections, we're going to see such developments. So are there any other questions for Mr. Veysel then? Well, we have already exceeded our time. Thank you very much.